Okay, let's take a look at Wealth of Nations. This is a recent pickup for me, and one I've been kind of excited about for a while. Even before I picked it up, it was on my want list. I'm really fatigued, so I was planning on kind of burning through the rules once more with a quick skim, because I'm looking at playing with, I have two expansions for it. This may be all there is. War Clouds, which updates the rules completely. Yeah, a lot of factors of them. And then this little Super Industry Tiles. I don't know what that is. But that's like 3 more tiles. War Clouds comes up with one of them. There's not a lot beyond that. Now, the basic goal of this game. First of all, after looking at the rules the first time, the first thing I thought about was, damn, this reminds me a little bit of After the Holocaust. In terms of, you have these producing regions, etc., and you're going to be managing your resources to try to get things out. As if this game has come up with a simpler and less painful means of capturing that. And my thought before I looked at it was War Clouds would expand that, but there's some significant differences. So this game doesn't include some stuff that After the Holocaust does. For example, territorial ideas of, well, how what you can produce where. And there's also, so energy is a generic here. In After the Holocaust, they have fuel and, well, labor, food, those are all pretty clear. Capital supply is essentially industrial output, mechanics, etc. It's hard capital as opposed to this kind of capital. And then ore supply as well, but this game allows you to kind of move things around in a way where you can dig up ore of some sort or another anywhere. You can generate energy anywhere. So it's not going to have the same kind of geographical constraints that After the Holocaust does. But anyway, that was my first thought on it. And then, I don't know, something kind of had me thinking a little bit about Executive Decision, but it's really not at all like that. This is definitely a Euro-style game. You can see it kind of reminds me a little bit of Power Grid in terms of the feel. So you're going to have these markets going on. And I'm kind of babbling. Like I said, I'm really exhausted. Work wiped me out today. It has been recently. Very, very, very tedious kind of stuff that it's very hard to keep my focus on. And I need lots of breaks or something. All right, let's take a look at what we got and, I don't know, discuss how the game kind of works. So in terms of victory for this game, you're going to get score at the end of the game, and I don't think War Clouds changes this, although it's hard to tell because there's, optional rules and stuff going on, and everything's kind of embedded into, instead of giving a whole new rule book, everything's kind of embedded in here with, oh yeah, you got to change this, you got to change this. Okay, yeah. So your goal in the game is basically to collect tiles on the board, and somewhere or another we have the victory conditions listed here, I think. No, over here. Industry tiles are going to be worth 4 victory points each if you own them, and you own them by marking them with your flag. Cash, every $10 of cash you have is going to be worth a victory point. But each promissory note that you take out a loan with is going to be worth -3 victory points. All right. Well, that's kind of what you're aiming at, is to get stuff. Now let's take a look at how the game itself actually works. So, and again, it's got to kind of merge these two rule books, because the second edition rules are kind of in here as opposed to on here. So at the beginning of the game, setup is a matter of purchasing certain packages, and this is from the basic game, I think. These end up changing for the second edition rules. They I think worked some balance into them, whatever. I'll use the second edition rules there, and I think I'm going to also use the War Clouds expansion. I've got some issues with the second edition rules, not in terms of clarity. They're perfectly clear except for trying to merge. You know, I mean, they're just like, oh yeah, add this to this, add this to that. Kind of like an old SFB style changes, but it's fine. It's a fairly simple game. So you purchase certain of these packages, and how you get them at the beginning depends on the number of players. I think everybody's stuck taking at least one industry package as their first pick, and then from then on they can choose between commodity and industry packages. Each person's only allowed to take any given package once, so these are kind of set up at the beginning of the game, and then you purchase them and take them over into your little area. So for example, if as an industry package you take industry package 1, which is 3 farms in the original game, well, it's the same here, essentially. You'd be getting 3 farm locations that you put on the board, and you get to set them up afterwards. So I think you select all your packages before you place them on the board, but I'm not positive of that. So let's see, choosing packages. Maybe put them down immediately. Yeah, you put them down immediately. So if you get tiles as part of your package, which you do in the industry packages, you just grab those tiles, for example, the farm one, and drop them on the board. And you'd put your little flags to indicate you own these. And that's kind of all you do. And you kind of want to connect things that are alike with each other because there's economies of scale built into this game. All right. Some of the packages, of course, come with a little bit of extra cash on them. Some of them include, for example, the industry package here in the new game includes this integrated economy tile, which gives you some energy as well as the farm ability, which can be important, I guess. I don't know. I mean, I have no idea about the strategy here. The commodity packages are going to give you goods. This one, for example, gives you piles and piles of food and some money and all kind of other stuff. And others give you different things. All right. Oh, I wonder if I got these all right. Looks like I guessed right. I didn't know which country to give the stars to. The little stars are going to be military units. They're from the expansion. All right. So this is done in kind of snaking order, which is to say the first player gets to pick a package, then we go around, and then we start from the back and work our way back around. And, well, with 6 players, we'll only do that once in each direction. But in 3 players, you do it like 4 times. In 2 players, I guess you'd do it 6 times. The 2-player game isn't specified in the original rules, and then it's kind of hinted at here. But they don't tell you how to do the setup, I don't think, on it. I'm not absolutely certain of that. But it seems like they want you to get a pile of things on the board. Now, there's an option, and I think we'll play with this, to throw some of these on the board. These are impassable areas. And I like the idea of there being kind of a polar cap. Or whatever. It could be a big ocean or something. There's different ways of describing it, and they give some different examples here. And certainly you could come up with your own ways of distributing these. For example, each person could be given one with a choice to put it where they like or sit on it. You probably do want to place them because they can help carve out some interesting terrain, but maybe not. Maybe it's more interesting to have things open. Anyway, I'm going to try this one just for kicks because it looks kind of neat. All right. And then after choosing these packages, acquiring the goods for them, then we go into the actual play of the game. And the play of the game is divided up into these different phases. This is a planning chart. Each player would have one of these. I guess it's a place where you can put your little cubes to help decide what you're going to do with them. Likewise, you could do it with this, but this may be out of date. I'm not sure. Anyway, at the beginning of any given turn, this passes, and I'll be going, of course, counterclockwise, as I always do for whatever strange reason. And then everybody has to pay $1 for each promissory note they have. They have to pay interest on these suckers. Now, this is kind of interesting because that, I think, has changed from the original rules. I believe that's changed. Anyway, so you have to pay for holding these promissory notes for interest, and that makes them more expensive than they were in the original. Then you enter the trade phase, where you're going to get to do one of a number of different things, and this is done in player order, one after the other, and you go around as many times as you like until everybody's done. Now, the original game had this limited. We'll touch on what this is and then go back to the original. You can buy 1, 2, or 3 commodities from a market. You can sell 1, 2, or 3. You can barter with another player, or you can pass. Okay, well, pass is easy. Barter with another player is essentially come up with any deal you like. You're pretty much unrestricted in these. But what about the commodities markets and buying and selling? Well, in the original game, you could buy 1 cube or sell 1 cube that you had. And if you sell the cube, you get this little price in the center of the circle. If you buy one, you pay the big price out that's not covered. And if there's no cubes here, well, then you'll be using these prices. In order to buy, you'll have to buy at 13, which is the highest price there is. If all the cubes are on the sell pool, I'm not sure if, yeah, it looks like there are enough that there would still be some left, then you sell them at only $1 each. There's a third little number in here, which is the barter price. That's just to give you an indication to the players what the fair value for interplayer deals is. Chances are that's what you're going to go with at evaluating things, because frankly, if you can't match that, how much can you miss it by, right? Like if I sell to the market, I'm going to get $1 less than that. But if you buy from the market, you're going to pay, in this case, a couple bucks more. So there's a little bit of leeway there, but not a lot in terms of what's available. And if I sold to the market at $1 less, you'd only be paying $1 more to get them. But it's just a guideline. It doesn't restrict you at all. All right. So in the original game, you're dealing with 1 cube at a time. In this version, you have to deal with up to 3 cubes from the market, and it looks like they can be from different versions. So I could buy 2 food and an energy if that's what I want, or I could sell 1 of 3 different types of cubes, or whatever. Why? Okay, so this is the thing that I have kind of a gripe about, not because I think it's tremendously unbalancing, but it strikes me that the original way with 1 cube each made for a smoother pricing of goods. If I sell a food to the market, you can still sell one at the same price, and the market is fairly flat, so the chance of things moving quickly was going to be pretty low. It's still not really there. Like, I could sell 3 food and not jar the price. So I don't think it's going to have a huge effect on the game. And it'll certainly speed things up if people can do things in lots of 3, which is obviously the reason it was actually done, is that the game just took too long with everybody taking one little tiny action at a time. There's something kind of 18xx about this in terms of the buying and selling of cubes. Just the, you can drop 1, you can buy 1, whatever, where you get to kind of watch what other people are doing and what prices are going. Oh, I know the other game this reminded me of. Not 18xx, Supremacy, with its markets. But here, you're dealing in such little commodities. You're not dumping, I'll throw 18 of the commodity onto the market at once, get a lot of money, and drop the price to nothing for the next person who then will buy. It's not a broken looking market. It looks like you can sell goods, but buying them back, it's not going to be the seesaw type action going on here. That's my hope. Of course, it could still end up happening. I don't think it will, though. All right. There's another change to the basic game here, which is there's a limit on promissory notes, which is, first of all, if you don't have the ability to pay interest, and you can always take out more promissory notes to pay interest, I'll explain them in a moment, then you're out of the game. And all your stuff goes back to the supply, except for the stuff that's on the board, which remains there. So if the pool of promissory notes disappears, you end up out of the game. Now, one thing here is promissory notes, when you take them, the first one gives you 20 bucks. Let's zoom in here. The second one will only give you 19 bucks. Now, when you want to repay these, they cost you 25 bucks. So there was the original interest factor built in, but they want to charge you per turn for holding them as well. So loans become kind of expensive in this game. I'm assuming that the original game, loans were just such a great deal that you wanted to grab them up as much as you could. So that's probably an advantage, but I don't have the experience in the game. Okay, so after everybody passes in the trade phase, after everybody's settled on what they want to do for trade, then we go to the develop phase. And this works kind of the same way. Each person can take one action. And in the develop phase, your action is to your action choices are to build new tiles, essentially. So that's one option. So it costs you to build a tile on the board, these different costs. Now they may have changed. I don't know. Yeah, I don't think they have with the changes in the game. Let's see. No, doesn't look like it. Okay, so these are your costs. So for example, if you want to build a new farm tile, you have to pay 1 white, which is an ore. That seems kind of odd. And 1 capital. Okay, that's great. Now, you also, unless you already have a flag on the space, have to buy a flag. And that's going to cost you a labor pool to put the flag down on a location. Now there's limitations to what you can build where. Okay? And let's see what those are. So, placing a flag on a space, I believe it has to be, it has to be adjacent to a space that already contains one of your flags. You can expand into next door hexes no matter what. Building an industry tile, you can build anywhere where you have a flag. So you can drop a flag and build an industry tile. I believe that can be done as one part of a thing. Nope. You got to place the flag first. Okay. All right. Now there's some limitations to building an industry tile. In general, it's got to be in your flag space. There can be no industry tiles there. And you got to pay the cost. You may not put it next to a space that would cause mixed partial dots. So you couldn't do this, all right, because that creates a blue and yellow, unless you pay an extra black cube. And that allows you to force the placement. And it doesn't matter how many violations there are. You could, for example, place like this, even though there's multiple violations. Now, these don't produce, so they're not a wise idea anyway, perhaps. There also is, you can see, you can place it next to a piece without necessarily violating this rule. You don't have to, so for example, I don't think you have to connect the dots there. Yeah, you're allowed to place a partial dot on the blank side, or place it so that blanks fit. So this is allowable. Okay. You're allowed to automate a space. Now, automation costs you an energy and 2 capitals, and you're automating a block of spaces. A block is a group all of the same industry. So, for example, this or this would all be automated by a single automation tile being put there. Now, if this is in here, this is not considered part of the block, even if you had your little flag there, because it's of a different industry. Okay? You're also allowed to move industries. You can move up to 3 tiles by spending a capital cube, that's a black, and not sure if any of this has changed. See, there's changes for war clouds. Let's hold off on that. And basically, you can fly it to anywhere on the board according to this. That isn't this can be to spaces that aren't adjacent to your own. You can move any 3 tiles. They don't need to be of the same type. You don't have to keep groups together. If you break up an automation thing, though, only one of the tiles keeps the automation space on it. Now, the reason you'd want to do this is because you could get blocked off to where you can't expand anymore, get trapped somewhere, and you can fly your territories somewhere else. Now, let's take a look. Well, let's keep going, and we'll take a look at the War Clouds changes, because we are going to play with the military rules, but I kind of want to explain the base game as well first. Okay, so I'll ignore for now the military units that you're building and the transportation. They're not too big a deal. And we'll go to the produce phase. And during the produce phase, you're allowed to produce commodities for particular blocks. And the cost for this, the base cost for producing anything, is 1 energy and 1 food. And that will give you something usually. So, for example, here in an academy, if you give them 1 energy and 1 food, it's 1 energy for the block. So a block like this takes 1 energy. 1 food per tile. Let's ignore the fact that those are farms for this moment. And then each dot that you have fully built in that section would produce. Okay, so this is the basic rule. Now, if it's automated, you don't have to spend a food per space. You only need to spend 1 ore for the block. So it costs 1 energy and 1 ore to power up an entire block. Okay. There are some special cases, though. So, for example, a farm, you don't need to feed. It produces food. It's excess food. So as long as you produce it an energy for the entire block, it would produce food. And in this case, 1 energy cube would get you, doesn't really need to be automated if it's a farm, would get you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 food, I believe. That's what it looks like. And it would get you 6 of these cubes out of here. So you'd spend 1 blue cube, drop it into the supply, and grab 6 energy cubes out of the supply. I think if the supply runs out, you start taking out of here, but I'm not sure about that. Certainly it seems like it would be possible for that to happen. All right. Like the food, like the farms, the energy sector also doesn't require energy. But you still have to pay 1 food per space, or if you automate a block of such sectors, they have to share, I think, to be automated. If you automate a block of such sectors, then it would cost just an ore instead of a food per. So this could cost you 2 food to run or 1 ore, and then it would produce 3 energy cubes. Okay. Let's see if there's any other things about production here. So we have the new type of thing, a bank, which produces money. You have to use the normal food or ore plus an energy, and it'll produce you $30 per dot, which will just be cash. I'm going to split the video here. Okay, so let's keep going. That is the way production works. Now let's, I guess, jump to the end of the game and then go to the changes for the war clouds. So the game ends once somebody puts all their flags on the board. There's 18 of them. Or if every board on the hex contains either a flag or an industry tile, or if at least 5 of the basic types, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Ooh, there's supposed to be 6. What? These 5 of the different. Oh, these are the banks. Yeah. If 5 of the 6 basic types of industry have run out, if there's been kind of a lot of people interested in certain ones and one's been kind of disfavored, that one can keep a couple of pieces on. If any of those conditions happen during the develop phase, which is when they'll happen, then there's going to be a final produce and trade phase. You produce, and then you do another trade to sell off your goods. And then the game will end. And at that point, you get the victory points as listed. 4 per industry that you own that you have flagged, 1 per $10 you have, and -3 per promissory note you're still holding. Now, that final trade phase is also speeded up. I'm never sure because I don't think sped's a word. In the original game, everybody sells a commodity. In this, you sell them all at the same price. The price is going to be the average between the current price and what the price will be, I believe. And everybody sells them at that same price. Okay. And that's just, I don't know, to speed up the effect instead of allowing people to, sell off one after another. And it's a good thing because it prevents some calculation as well, because otherwise you might be looking and saying, oh, I could drop the price of that and the price of that. Which one do I want to do more? Who do I want to affect more? Stupid little mathematical exercises that really don't make the game terribly, don't add any interest to the game. But they're the kind of little mechanical things that a lot of Euros, I feel, have, where you got to look at everybody's stuff and figure it out. And that's one of the things that I'm kind of looking forward to this, is it kind of doesn't look like you do have to in the same way. We'll see. Okay. So, what are the changes? Because we're adding the war clouds. Well, the big change is you have these military units, and you start with one of them. In the develop phase, along with building other stuff, you can build military units. And they cost you 1 labor and 1 energy. And you can only build 1 in each tile. So to mark that you've built 1 in a tile, you can rotate the flag, or maybe even flip them over or something. I don't know. You can also activate your military, and that costs you 1 food to do, and it allows you to activate 3 different military units. The first thing you're allowed to do when you activate a military unit is, I believe, you move it, and that can go into an adjacent hex, except for the impassable stuff, which includes the center hex. And then you're allowed to do an operation with that unit, which can be attack, conquer, or settle. You can choose not to do one of the two things, or not to do anything at all with some of your units, or whatever. So you could move and not do an operation, or not move and do an operation, or you can do both. In the develop phase, you're also allowed to transport units, which allow you to spend an ore to fly a military unit into an empty hex or a hex with one of your pieces. But you cannot put it in any hex that has opposing pieces in it. After transportation, you can do a settle operation, which I believe is one of the options here. Yeah, it's one of the normal options when you move a unit. Well, now you can also settle a space. Okay, so let's look at what these different operations do. The easiest one is settle, but let's go with battle first. Battle says an opponent's got a star there, I've got a star there, we're both going to die. Very, I don't know, civilization-like, actually, but you don't pair them off or anything. You just say, I'm attacking, and we each remove a piece. Conquer. Conquer happens if you have a military unit in a hex that has an opponent's flag, but no industry tile. You remove your unit and the opponent's flag and replace your own flag in that tile, and the opponent gets their flag back. Defensive stand. Okay, when you move into a space with an opponent's spaces, military units, the defender can choose to fight, and they get a free battle with you in that you both lose a piece. That's kind of an interrupt action that the defender can make. The settle operation. If you have an activated or transported a military unit and it's in a hex without a flag, you can remove the military unit and drop your own flag there. Okay. Transporting industry tiles. So there are some changes to transporting industry. You can only move it into a hex that contains one of your flags. You move the industry tile as normal, but you leave all other pieces behind, including the flag. If it has an automation token, the automation token is destroyed now. Okay? So you can't move your industry to Siberia just by shifting the thing. I don't know. Anyway. You're not able to flee quite as easily as you used to be able to, is basically what it comes down to. And your flag remains where it is, so you have to actually go conquer territory before you can move a piece there. During the produce phase, there's something new which is not listed here. Occupy a tile. If you have a military unit on an opponent's block, you can occupy that block. This doesn't cost you resources. You declare that you're doing it. Then you steal resources from it. For each unit that you have occupying the block, if the block runs, you get to steal a resource from that production pile. And each military unit gets to do it. The owner of the block can choose to run the block, a portion of it, or not run it at all. Occupying players get their cubes before the owner of the block. So if you have military units in somebody else's territory, you get the produce from it before they do. And if it doesn't produce enough to pay each occupying player, then they take their cubes in turn order until all are paid one at a time. So, excluding the person who owns the block, because he doesn't get his production until everybody else does. Okay. Additional rules and important reminders. Yeah, there doesn't look like there's much there. You can build military units even if the opponent's there. You can't flag a hex that has an opponent's military units. Okay. Then they give the optional two-player rules. And they don't really tell you much here. Each player starts with 18 flags. Players may not barter with one another. Yeah, okay. That doesn't sound too different from what you would have. There's a set of optional additional rules. Let's see if we've got any of these. If you pass, you may not conduct more trade options. I don't like that. Cash only start. This one's kind of interesting. I could see doing this one. You don't start with packages. You just start with a pile of money. That one intrigues me a little bit because that sounds almost like a slower start. You're not going to... First of all, the game's going to take longer to end because it's going to take longer to cover the hexes with industries of various type. And also, you have more flexibility as to what you build and what you do over the long run. Kind of feels more like an after the Holocaust situation where things are just so demolished that you have to build them up. There's a difference there. You get a lot of money to start with, $360 and a flag. You fill all the wells on the upper two rows of the market. That's going to be a problem. Of the market board. So you're going to be more commodities will be cheaper to buy, is I guess what it comes down to. And then you start with trade and you start buying commodities so that you can build stuff on the board. Now, here's where you want these little planning sheets really, is you want to kind of say, yeah, I bought myself, these, I'm going to be building this, and I'm going to be doing this, and you can kind of, pre-decide what you're doing and plot it out on your little chart. That'll help keep things in mind. I think you can do it on here just as well, to tell you the truth, and I'm short on table space, so I didn't want to give everybody a planning board. Another option is shared dot synergy. When two people share a dot, let's say we had this kind of situation, then they can both produce fully from it. So this guy could run and he'd get these dots, and if this guy ran, he would get them as well. Again, I think that reduces competition and conflict, so I'm going to leave that out. The other one, the cash only start, is very interesting to me, but I don't want to do that on this first playing. Starting player does not choose the first package. The starting player doesn't get first pick for industry packages. Place one industry tile per player face down on the table. One should be a generator, one a mine, and the rest farms. You randomize them, and each player picks one. The person who gets the generator gets the first player marker and will be the first player in the trade phase. However, the player who picks the mine acts as the first player when choosing packages. Okay, so shake up that starting position a little bit more. I don't think that's necessary because I don't know what I'm doing enough to really misdo it. All right, well, that's what we've got for the rules. And yes, a long-winded, painful explanation, I know. Say this much, I know Tom Vassell did a explanation. I'm sure it's more to the point. But part of the reason that I do these is to help remind myself. I'm not sure why people watch them, but that's okay. They don't watch them very long. They don't watch them for the full rules usually. But I think some people do. I've gotten requests to go into the rules in detail on games, so I've gotten into the habit of doing it. And, well, whatever. I'm looking forward to this one. When I first started looking at the rules of the base game, I said, oh, wow, that's cool. This one, I think the improvements to that second edition of the rules are going to be overall for the better. I don't know how much the military is going to change things and make things better, but we'll see. I can't see playing this twice on video when I have everything here, so I might as well give it a shot with the full boat of rules. All right, up it goes.